Oh, the joy of crowdsourcing our community Seder. How fun is that? Hello, Emanuel, and thanks for joining us in our virtual village, 5959 online. You are in for a big treat. Special thanks to Ted Rochelle for his inspiration, Leah Jones for her organization, and all our contributors for their participation. On behalf of our professional team, our volunteer leadership, and my family, I wish you all a Zisson Pesach, a sweet Passover. Now sit back and recline. It's time for Emanuel's Crowdsourced Seder. Have fun.
We're beginning in 5, 4.
Thank you, Rabbi Marantz, as we now turn, at least metaphorically, perhaps in fact, to the Haggadah itself and to the Passover experience, be it these comments shared at the table or in preparation for going to table. Passover is understood to be the most observed holiday in Jewish tradition, presumably because at the very least it involves a meal, and presumably especially because it involves what lies at the heart of the Jewish story. Our people have been around for 4,000 years. The Passover Seder commemorates an event that's at least 3,000, more likely 3,300 years in the past, and it does so in a construction that is perchance somewhere around 2,000 plus or minus years, because in very many of its aspects, it's modeled after a Roman banquet, to which there's a tension on the table, and it's an extraordinary one, and I think a vital lesson as well. That tension is symbols of abundance, the Roman banquet idea, juxtaposed with symbols of scarcity, of poverty. Matzah, which, by the way, the tradition offers two explanations. This is poor people's bread, or this is the bread of affliction, as well as the traditional story, there wasn't enough time for the bread to rise. They're symbols of poverty. And of course, 4 cups of wine, a caloric ambush of way too much eating, abundance. Charosis is clearly a symbol of scarcity, tears, salt water, etc. So that tension for our ancestors, clearly the great leap was to identify with those symbols of abundance. For us, perhaps we're fortunate enough that we also need to identify with those symbols of impoverishment so that it might motivate us to say, we're not just having a Seder, this Seder is to move us to action. That liberation is not complete. Freedom is the work not only that we enjoy, but the work that calls upon us to do more for others in our family and beyond our family as well. It's a remarkable tale. It is a journey that continues in us, and a journey that quite clearly, whether you embrace it or not, change the world. Might even cause us to have some pride and also some challenge. That is the heart of the Seder, not just, oh boy, but also, what do I do now with this joy? Maimonides played on one of the notions in the Seder. I'll prove that I still remember Hebrew even though I'm retired. But Kol Dor Vador, in every generation, a person is obligated to see him or herself as though he or she personally came out of Egypt. And to deconstruct that for a moment, each of us has something that keeps us in chains, keeps us from being all that we might yet become. Passover clearly in the beginning of spring and then the return to life gives us the chance to embrace that possibility, that prospect. What gets in the way? How might we remove it? Or even if perchance we need some help, we can call for it to help get it out of the way. Maimonides, however, says not only in every generation is a person obligated to see himself, but in every generation is a person is obligated to show herself as though she personally came out of Egypt. I think that's vital because I think it's a key to Jewish life. It's not just enough to think it. It's not just enough to believe it. We're called upon for action. Action. One more little reflection. Elijah is going to show up. Everybody looks forward to that. And of course, the cup does seem to go down a little bit. Ha ha ha. The normative understanding is that Elijah shows up because this is something like messianic time, something like, will the world finally get to be fully all it should be? And in some ways that's true, because if the Seder in normative times, if only they should hurry and come around, were to be occurring, there would be multi-generations at the table. And at the end of the book of prophets, the last verses of the Hebrew Bible, I shall send you Elijah on that great and awesome day of God, and he shall turn the hearts of the children to the parents and the hearts of the parents to the children. What's something that gets us closer to a messianic time? The end of a generation gap, when families share values and celebrate those values together. The other notion, however, is that Elijah comes because Elijah gave up on the Jewish people. He was the last one. After him, no more. And so to speak, God forces him to come to demonstrate that you can't have a Seder unless those four questions are asked. And traditionally, of course, it's the children who ask them. It's the continuity of our tradition. It's that there will become a day when all the world shall be one. May that come soon, speedily, and in our day. Blessings. Enjoy the Seder. Don't overeat too much, at least not too much.
How's this in a Pesach, everybody? I'm so thrilled I can be with you. Not exactly in the way I hoped, but what a miracle it is I can be with you at all through the miracle of technology. This season of our renewal, of our rebirth, reminds us of the Exodus from Egypt, an Exodus which was miraculous by all counts, and it leaves us with a very important job to do, to make sure that all who are enslaved are freed. It's incumbent upon us. It was the gift we're given. And so, as we kindle these lights and bring in our spring festival of Passover, I wish you the strength, not to complete the job, but to start it with a whole heart. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel yom tov. May these festival lights open our eyes to the joys in life. Beauty that delights the eyes, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, the heritage of celebration that unites us as a people. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, for giving us life, for sustaining us, for enabling us to reach this season. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Chag Sameach.
Kadesh, the sanctification. Human beings are the source of holiness, and human will is the anvil upon which holiness is formed. Abraham Joshua Heschel. Friends, let us bless. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei Peri Hagafen. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who creates fruit of the vine. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who chose us from among all peoples and raised us above all languages and separated us through God's commandments. You have lovingly given us seasons for happiness, festivals, and times for rejoicing. This day of the festival of unleavened bread, the time for our freedom, a holy gathering in remembrance of the exodus from Egypt. For you have chosen us and separated us from all nations, and your holy festivals in happiness and rejoicing you have made our inheritance. Blessed are you, Adonai, sanctifier of Israel and all seasons. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this day. Drink the first cup of wine while reclining to the left.
Urchatz, washing the hands without a blessing. Go.
Oh, hi! Happy Passover from the Herlich house. I was just reading my Haggadah. We're just at the Karpas section. I'm so glad you're joining us. So here we are. Actually, I thought I'd bring this along. I grew this. I planted them at Tu B'Shvat, and so I thought we would use them today. So I'm just going to cut off a little section. These are some nice fresh parsley leaves. Yummy. And here we go. Karpas are supposed to remind us of the freshness and newness of springtime with the greens. So Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Peri Ha'adamah, and we dip them in the salt water and we eat.
The Seder table has a ceremonial plate with 3 pieces of matzah. The middle matzah on this plate has a special job. Half of it will hide and come back later as the last bite of our meal. Yachatz means split in 2. The larger piece of this matzah will be called the Affliction, an ancient Greek word that means after dinner fun. In a game of hide and seek, adults will hide the Affliction and children will have to find it.
But in some families, the roles are reversed.
The missing piece of matzah will be tonight's dessert. Keep a close eye on it before it disappears. At the end of the meal, you may get a prize for finding the Affliction.
Aha! Now I get to go hide the Affliction.
Find a good spot.
How are we doing so far? I hope you're having a great time. A long time ago, God heard the cries of our ancestors who had been slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt for 400 years. God heard their cries and came to their rescue. And with the help of Moses, Miriam, and Aaron, God saved the Jewish people and took them out of slavery. With no time even to let bread dough rise, leading our ancestors to the Sea of Reeds. There we witnessed the miracle of the split waters, and then we were on to Sinai and the giving of Torah. Afterward, through 40 years in the wilderness, we arrived in the land of Israel. And at the heart of the Haggadah is the Maggid, the actual narration of the Pesach experience. Here, the storyteller takes us through Yetziat Mitzrayim, our courageous escape from Egypt, with God empowering us forward. And in our own time, we celebrate Passover as our own Zman Cherutenu, our own season of freedom, as if we too are slaves in Egypt, bound by today's afflictions and in need of redemption. In this spirit, I offer you a poem by Dan Belm, which I found in the Reform movement's new Haggadah, Mishkan HaSeder, which you'll be inspired to know, thanks to an old friend, Mark Fenton, is written in the memory of his and our beloved Rabbi, Herman Shalman, Zichrono Livracha. The poem is entitled, The Weight. You must prepare to carry nothing where you walk. A God who cannot be seen, a name you cannot speak. Therefore, gather the most precious of what you have and build me something heavy you can carry. Heavy as you want, I will be weightless in it. An idea, a promise, among you, within you. I will be unbearable. You can bear it. Over and over, you will pick it up and set it down. And as you wander, you will lose what you brought forth. The ark will collapse in your hands. The stones of the law will break. Then you will carry me in your minds, in your mouths, unbearable as you want. You can bear it. Each year, we celebrate our liberation from Egypt by reading the Passover story out loud during the Seder. V'higadata levincha, you shall tell your children. This is the operating mitzvah that frames the Haggadah. But there is more to this mitzvah than just telling and listening. There's also engaging and wrestling. Commentary in Mishkan HaSeder reflects for a moment on a bit of Talmud. Even the wisest students need to discuss the Exodus with one another, it says. Chevre, if we are to better understand how to heal the world around us, then Passover must be about conversation. We must actively listen to and talk about unique struggles for freedom and where they intersect in our lives. Hopefully then fostering empathy for how we share in the greater struggle for liberation as the commentary continues. The importance of stories is stressed in the Midrash that reminds us that the Torah was given in 70 languages. So just as Torah is given in every language so that it might be available to all humanity, so do we need to make stories of oppression and repair and tikkun olam universally accessible. And so now we continue with the rest of the Maggid. Enjoy.
Halachma Anya. Di achalu avahavtana ba'arad mitzrayim called dikfin yete v'yehol called ditrich yete v'yifsak hashata hacha l'shana haba'a ba'arad Yisrael hashata avdei l'shana haba'a b'nei chorin. This is the bread of affliction, the poor bread, which our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are in want share the hope of Passover. As we celebrate here, we join with our people everywhere. This year, we celebrate here. Next year, in the land of Israel. Now we are all still in bondage. Next year, may all be free. We uncover the matzah and we say, Avadim hayinu leFaro b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the eternal our God brought us out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. Now, if God had not brought out our forefathers from Egypt, then even we, our children, and our children's children might still have been enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Therefore, even were we all wise, all of us understanding, and even if we are all old and well learned in Torah, it would still be our duty to tell the story of the departure from Egypt. And the more one tells of the departure from Egypt, the more he is to be praised.
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו matzah. הלילה הזה כולו matzah. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מתפללים אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבינו ובין מסובין, בין יושבינו ובין מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין.
What is different about this night from all others? In this night, all other nights we are eating leavened or unleavened food. This night only unleavened? That in all other nights we are eating all kinds of vegetables. This night only bitter herbs? That in all other nights we are dipping foods only one time. This night 2 times? That on all other nights we are eating, some are sitting, and some are leaning. This night everyone is leaning?
How do you lean in your chair? How do you get comfy? Nope. Recline. Go back. There.
The Modern Four Sons. The following is a new interpretation of the Four Sons that illustrates the journey of many Jews living in America. We're not judging here, just witnessing. Besides, what better time to talk about choices and change than Passover? The first, previously known as the wise son. Let's call him Irving. He came to America in the early 1900s, not only because his family had a terribly poor existence in Poland, but mostly because they were running for their lives to escape the pogroms, the vicious riots when gangs of Russian Cossacks went into Jewish shtetls or villages and raped and killed thousands of Jews. Irving and thousands like him came to America. They came with nothing, but at least America gave them safety and freedom. Irving flourished. As a boy, he spoke Yiddish and went to yeshiva. When he arrived in America, he learned English. His family remained observant, continuing to follow kosher rules, celebrating Shabbat each week, and living a traditional Jewish life. Irving's commitment to Judaism was unshakable. The second son, previously known as the wicked son. Irving's son David is the second generation. David grew up in America with a strong Jewish identity. He's comfortable in his mom and dad's home, which is filled with Jewish traditions and values. But his own home and family are, let's just say, more American. David experienced some anti-Semitism, but never felt like he had to run for his life. His goal was to be a successful business executive, and if that meant working on Shabbat, something that Irving would never do, David did it. He became so successful that he was one of the first Jews to be accepted into his local country club that would never allow Jews before. David took his family to Paris and Rome, but forgot to take them to Israel. He did a great job of assimilating, but sort of a lackluster job of teaching his son Josh, who you'll meet below, about Judaism. The third son, previously known as the simple son. Meet David's son Josh. He's the third generation of Jews in America. Josh is like, well, lots of us. He considers himself culturally Jewish. Josh may have had a Seder at his grandfather Irving's house, but Josh, who by the way is an excellent soccer player, never really concentrated on his Judaism. He felt very little anti-Semitism growing up. He quit Hebrew school because it conflicted with soccer practice, and he went to Hillel a couple times at Duke. See, we told you Josh wasn't simple, but it felt too Jewish for him. Josh did go on Birthright, but that was a few years ago. David is bummed that Josh doesn't have a stronger connection to Judaism, but what are you going to do? By the way, Josh is married to Shannon, who is Protestant but would like to learn about Judaism. Unfortunately, Josh doesn't feel like he knows enough to teach her. The fourth son, previously known as the son who doesn't know how to ask a question. Finally, meet Josh and Shannon's son Luke. Of course, he knows his dad is Jewish and actually loves seeing old photographs of Irving. But other than that, he has little connection to Judaism. We really miss and need all Lukes. Let's work together to invite everyone who is disengaged from their Judaism back to our sometimes dysfunctional, often confusing, but always loving community.
Hi, I'm Amy Guth, and I'm going to be sharing the Exodus story. This is a Haggadah that I actually downloaded off the internet more than 10 years ago. I was having a Seder that year with a bunch of people from mixed backgrounds, including some children with some short attention spans. So I downloaded this family-friendly one, and everybody really loved it. So I've used it ever since. It's just kind of loose pages that they're kind of beat up now, but they're treasures to me. So here we go. Our story begins with degradation and ends with dignity. May our lives and endeavors end as our story in glory. Approximately 4,000 years ago, our people were slaves in Egypt. If Adonai had not brought us out of Egypt, we would still be slaves there. Every year we retell the story because it's our people's story and because it's wonderful and important to tell. We also retell this story each year to remind ourselves of the importance of human freedom. The story of our people's exodus from Egypt reassures us that freedom is possible, deliverance can come, salvation is within our reach, and the dream of redemption can become a reality. Nearly 4,000 years ago, there was a famine in the land of Israel. Our ancestor Jacob took his family and settled in Egypt, where there was plenty of food. The children of Jacob lived well in Egypt. They became a great nation, powerful and numerous. Sometime later, a new king came to the throne of Egypt. He feared the Israelites because there were so many of us. He said, if there is a war, they will join our enemies and fight against us. So Pharaoh forced our people to become his slaves. He ordered us to make bricks and build buildings for him. Taskmasters were set over us. They imposed heavy labor, and we built the cities of Pithom and Ramses. We cried out to Adonai for help, and Adonai heard our plea, saw our suffering, and responded to our oppression. Adonai remembered the covenant with our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It doesn't mention the matriarchs here, but let's remember the matriarchs too. Pharaoh refused to let us go free, so God brought 10 plagues to the land of Egypt. Blood, frogs, lice, insects, cattle disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and the slaying of the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. When Pharaoh's own son died, he finally agreed to let us go. God alone executed the judgment of death, for I will go through the land of Egypt in the night, I and not any intermediary. The Holy One, Adonai, could have given the Israelites the power to avenge themselves upon the Egyptians, but Adonai did not want to sanction the use of their fists for self-defense even at that time. For while at that moment they might merely have defended themselves against evildoers, by such means the way of the fists spreads through the world, and in the end, defenders become aggressors. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be Adonai, took great pains to remove Israel completely from any participation in the vengeance upon the evildoers, to such an extent that they were not even permitted to see the events. And now, Ruthie is going to share with you the 10 plagues.
Hello, Chag Sameach. We're going to be doing the 10 plagues. See this lovely cup of wine? A full cup of wine is a symbol of complete joy. But we are not going to have that complete joy when we're talking about the plagues. I'm going to use my finger, and you can use yours, to take out a drop of wine for each plague. And I have a napkin here so I can wipe my finger. We lessen the fullness of our cups as we remember the plagues brought upon the Egyptians and express our sorrow over the losses that each plague brought. So are we ready? You have your full cup? Okay, you can say this after me. The first one in English is blood, dam. Taking out a drop. There was blood in all the water of Egypt. There was no drinking water. Here is the blood. Blood. Now the second one. It's going to be frogs. Okay, ready to take a drop on your napkin? Frogs, tzifardea. Frogs hopped and croaked everywhere. No one could sleep, no one could walk, no one could play in peace because of you, Buster. Frogs. Third one. Ooh, what's this creepy guy? Lice. Look at all those legs. 6 legs. We know it's an insect. Lice. Ready? Finger in and dip. Lice, kinim in Hebrew, made everyone itch and scratch. Ooh, I'm scratching just thinking about it. Okay, lice. Oh, look, a little lion. But it's not supposed to be cute. It's supposed to be wild animals. So you ready? Get your finger. Let's take a drop out of our lovely cup. Wild beasts in Hebrew, a rove. Wild beasts galloped and slithered and snorted and growled and roared everywhere. Oh, wild animals better go back. Oh, this plague is no better. It looks like a nice cow, but it's really about disease. The disease that the cows all caught. So here we go, dipping on the napkin. Disease, dever. That's how you say it in Hebrew. There were many incurable diseases. Cattle died, moo, leaving Egypt with no meat or milk. Oh, that's bad. Okay. These are bad plagues, aren't they? Here's the next one. No, it's not chicken pox. It's boils. Not nice. Another plague. So, dipping the finger, putting it here. In English, boils. In Hebrew, shechin. Boils. They rose from the skin, and the Egyptians could not even get dressed without screaming in pain. Yikes, that's a bad one. Ooh, glad I don't have boils. Now, this one looks like boils, but it's really hail coming down from a cloud. Hail can hurt. So hail is another plague. So we're just going to stick our finger in, take out another drop. In English, hail. In Hebrew, barad. Hail rained down as balls of ice, smashing roofs, damaging crops, and causing fires. It's crazy. These plagues that God brought to the Egyptians were no laughing matter. And here I see another insect. You know what these are? Locusts. That's right. In English, locust. So we dip our finger in to take out some wine. Locusts are beh. That's how you say it in Hebrew. Locusts swarmed the plants and the crops, and loud buzzing sounds consumed the land. Hey, you, away from my wine. There you go. Zzz, okay, back to your place. Next one. What? You can't see anything except the eyes. That's because it's darkness. One of the plagues is darkness. In Hebrew, choshech. People were cold. Even the moon and the stars did not appear. For 3 days, it was darkness. Oh, did I do that? This is for darkness. One less drop to drink. Thank you, darkness. And our last one, it's actually quite sad. You can see an Egyptian here, and all the Egyptians lost their firstborn son. Very sad. That's why it looks like that. He's not very happy. Last one, finger in the wine. We've taken out 10 drops from our delicious wine. Slaying of the firstborn. In Hebrew, makat bechorot. The firstborn son of every Egyptian family died. So those, my friends, are the 10 plagues, a very important part of the Passover Seder. Have a wonderful Seder, and remember, we are all working together to get rid of plagues that still are in our world. We'll do it. Shalom.
And back from Ruthie. The Jews left Egypt at midnight in such a hurry that they didn't have time to let their bread dough rise. We baked it immediately, and it came out flat and hard, the first matzah. Our people escaped to the Reed Sea with the Egyptians in hot pursuit. Rabbi Judah says, when the Israelites stood at the shore of the Reed Sea, one said, I do not want to go down to the sea first. Another said, I do not want to go down to the sea first either. While they were standing there deliberating, Nachshon, the son of Amminadab, leaped up, ran down to the shore, and jumped into the swirling waters. The waters rose around him, and he began to drown. At the same time, Moses stood reciting long prayers before Adonai. Adonai said to him, Moses, my friend, is sinking in the water, and the sea is closing in upon him. The enemy is pursuing, and you stand there reciting long prayers. Moses said before Adonai, ruler of the universe, what else can I do? Adonai replied, lift up your rod. Moses lifted his rod, and the waters parted, and the Israelites crossed over on dry land. Salvation comes to those who work together with Adonai to bring it. From the Reed Sea, our people traveled on to Mount Sinai, where Adonai gave them the Torah. At Sinai, we entered into our covenant with Adonai, which sustains us to this day and teaches us to cherish a vision of the world free of pharaohs, slavery, and plagues.
3, 2, 1. Tonight we drink 4 cups of wine. Why 4? Some say the cups represent our matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, whose virtue caused God to liberate us from slavery. Another interpretation is that the cups represent the 4 worlds: physicality, emotions, thought, and essence, Still, a third interpretation is that the cups represent the 4 promises of liberation God makes in the Torah. I will bring you out, I will deliver you, I will redeem you, I will take you to be my people. The 4 promises in turn have been interpreted as 4 stages on the path of liberation: becoming aware of oppression, opposing oppression, imagining alternatives, and accepting responsibility to act. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Dayenu, how many gifts God has bestowed upon us. Ilu hotzianu mi mitzrayim, lo karalanu et hayam, lo karalanu et hayam, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu karalanu et hayam, v'lo heviranu b'tocho v'charava, v'lo heviranu b'tocho v'charava, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu heviranu b'tocho v'charava, v'lo sipek tzarchenu b'midbar, 40 shana, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu tzipek tzarchenu b'midbar 40 shana, v'lo hechilanu et haman, v'lo hechilanu et haman, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu hechilanu et haman, v'lo natalanu et tashabat, v'lo natalanu et tashabat, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et tashabat, v'lo keravanu lifnei har Sinai, v'lo keravanu et har Sinai, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu keravanu lifnei har Sinai, v'lo natan lanu et tatara, v'lo natan lanu et tatara, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et tatara, v'lo hiknisanu li Eretz Yisrael, v'lo hiknisanu li Eretz Yisrael, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu hiknisanu li Eretz Yisrael, v'lo bana lanu et Beit HaBechira, v'lo bana lanu et Beit HaBechira, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu vana lanu et Beit HaBechira, v'lo shalach aleinu navi ha'emet, v'lo shalach aleinu navi ha'emet, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu shalach aleinu navi ha'emet, v'lo samalanu la'am kadosh, v'lo samanu la'am kadosh, dayenu, 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 dayenu. How plentiful are the reasons for our gratitude to God for the many favors which He bestowed upon us. He brought us out of Egypt, divided the Red Sea for us, permitted us to cross on dry land, sustained us for 40 years in the desert, fed us with manna, ordained the Sabbath, brought us to Mount Sinai, gave us the Torah, led us into the land of Israel, built for us the temple, sent us prophets of truth, and made us a holy people to perfect the world under the kingdom of the Almighty in truth and in righteousness.
Rabban Gamliel used to say, "Whoever does not mention these three symbols on Passover has not fulfilled the obligation for the Seder evening, the Paschal lamb, the unleavened bread, and the bitter herb." The Pesach, which was consumed by our ancestors when the temple stood, why was it eaten? Because the Holy Blessed One protected the homes of our ancestors in Egypt, as it is written, "You will say, 'This is a Passover sacrifice to Adonai, who protected the homes of the children of Israel in Egypt when God struck the Egyptians. Indeed, God saved our homes.' And the people bowed their heads and prostrated themselves in prayer." This matzah, which we eat this evening, what is its significance? Because the dough of our ancestors did not have time to rise when the Holy Blessed One, ruler of the universe, appeared and redeemed them, as it is said, "They baked the dough that they took out of Egypt into cakes of unleavened bread, because it did not have time to rise. For they were expelled from Egypt hurriedly and could not delay. They did not even organize provisions for themselves." Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav comments on, "They did not even organize provisions for themselves." When you are about to leave Egypt, any Egypt, do not stop to think, "But how will I earn a living out there?" One who stops to organize provisions will never get out of Egypt. Maror. Why do we eat it this evening? Because the Egyptians embittered the lives of our ancestors in Egypt. As it said, the Egyptians embittered Hebrew lives with burdensome labor, with mortar bricks and every task done in the field. All the work the Hebrews did, they were ruthlessly forced to do.
Urchatz.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netidlat yadayim. We praise thee, O God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy by your mitzvot and commands us to wash our hands.
תזכור נפשנו את קדושת הגוף ונטילת ידיים. Washing the hands, we call to mind the holiness of body.
Amen.
חג שמח.
חג שמח.
בתיאבון.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah.
Amen.
Okey-doke. Maror Korech. So at this point in the Seder, for the telling of the story, we use the bitter herbs. We are instructed to use bitter herbs to remind us of the bitter times in Egypt, and that many people in many places continue to live bitter lives today. There are two items most often used for bitter herbs. One is horseradish. And until I was seriously older, say 50 years, for me, horseradish came in a jar. It was grated white stuff. It was really fine. And I thought it was only sold around Passover time and only in the kosher section of the store. For why else would you want this stuff? So that you can see as a child, if I can do this and get you to see it. There is the white stuff next to the charoset. Okay? See the white stuff? See the redder stuff? That's charoset. So you can see that as a child, the Haggadah instruction to dip the bitter herbs, dip them in the charoset was a challenge. How do you dip mush into mush? Then I learned one can use a romaine lettuce as maror, or that one can actually use the root of the horseradish plant. Actually not a bad looking plant. We use the root. And again, that made sense for dipping, because otherwise you were dipping mush into mush, and it just didn't make sense. Okay, so tonight I'm stopping. So tonight, or today, or this morning, I dip a slice of the root of the horseradish into the charoset. You can't see it, it's off camera. And we say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Blessed art thou, O Eternal, who has sanctified us with the commandment to eat bitter herbs. Oh, yummy. Okay, we move straight into Korach. Okay, Korach. That's actually a Hebrew word for sandwich. And it's in the Haggadah courtesy of Hillel. Yes, I learned in, let's say, the last 10 years that this section of the Seder is not as old as other sections. The Korach section was indeed added as a courtesy to Hillel. Oh, the maror is really starting to be fragrant. Yes, Hillel of the hundreds of locations on college campuses across the country. Hillel insisted, when talking with all the sages and rabbis of his time, that the biblical Seder instruction was to eat the paschal lamb, the Pesach, and the maror, the bitter herbs, and matzah, all together at one time like a sandwich. Picture an older rabbi eating a kosher gyro sandwich, or if there's two rabbis in your mind, eating gyros sandwiches. Being as important as he was, being as important as Hillel was in our history of the sages of our past, the Haggadah writers way back added this next section called sandwich to do just that, to follow the tradition of Hillel, who would only do them together. Remember, we looked at the matzah, we looked at the maror, but there's a problem. We have no paschal lamb. There is no Jerusalem temple. There is no Pesach sacrifice. So, after much Talmudic debate, the scholars substituted, wisely I would suggest, the sweet nuts and apple charoset instead of the paschal lamb, and that's what we use in today's sandwich. And note that since we have said the blessings on the matzah, and we have said the blessings on the maror, there is no blessing for the combo sandwich. And so the sandwich is eaten off camera, and we say, first in Hebrew, Zachar le'mikdash kehillel. Kein asa Hillel b'zman shebeit ha'mikdash kayam, haya korech et ha'pesach matzah u'maror v'ochel b'yachad, lekayem ma shene'amar al matzot u'merorim yacholuhu. Thus did Hillel during the existence of a holy temple. He took unleavened bread and bitter herbs and ate them together in order to perform the law. With unleavened bread and bitter herbs, thou shalt eat the paschal lamb. So, with bitter herbs and with matzah and with charoset and with zoom, we not only tell the story of Passover, but we experience it through smells and tastes. We are to imagine that we were there. We are to feel the pain of slavery, and then the joy and the responsibilities of freedom, and finally finishing the bitter herbs in my mouth. L'chaim.
חברי נברך, יהי שם אדוני מבורך מעתה ועד עולם. יהי שם אדוני מבורך מעתה ועד עולם. ברשות החברה נברך אלוהינו שאכלנו משלו. ברוך אלוהינו שאכלנו משלו, ובטובו חיינו. ברוך אלוהינו שאכלנו משלו, ובטובו חיינו. ברוך הוא וברוך שמו. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם. הזן את העולם כולו בטובו, בחן בחסד וברחמים. הוא נותן לחם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו. ובטובו הגדול, תמיד לא חסר לנו, ואל יחסר לנו, מזון לעולם ועד, בעבור שמו הגדול. כי הוא אלזן ומפרנס לכל, ומיטיב לכל, ומכין מזון לכל בריאותיו אשר ברא. ברוך אתה אדוני, הזן את הכל. ככתוב ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך על הארץ הטובה אשר נתן לך. ברוך אתה אדוני על הארץ ועל המזון. ובני ירושלים, עיר הקודש במהרה וימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני, בונה ורחמיו ירושלים, אמן. הרחמן hu yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Harachaman, hu yitbarach b'shamayim uva'aretz. Harachaman, hu yishlach beracha meruba b'bayit hazeh, ve'al shulchan zeh she'achalnu alav. Harachaman, hu yishlach lanu et Eliyahu hanavi zachor latov. Harachaman, hu yishlach lanu et Eliyahu hanavi zachor latov. Vivaser lanu, vivaser lanu, vivaser lanu, besorat tovot, Yeshuat v'nechamot. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom.
Take up our third cup of wine, the kos bracha, the cup of blessing. Together we take up the cup of wine, now recalling the third divine promise. As it is written, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. We praise you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has created the fruit of the vine.
Halal Prayers are Psalms 113 through 118, which focus on God's saving power and are used during Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot, and Hanukkah to praise God for various aspects of God's saving power. Psalm 113 praises God for being so great, yet concerned about helping the lowliest human being.
Psalm 114 praises God for being so great that God can rescue a nation enslaved, the most powerful nation on earth, part a sea and a river, and miraculously provide water from a rock for millions of people and their animals. God got very involved with the chosen people during our exodus from Egypt. God got very close to us. Praises.
Psalm 115 praises God that salvation comes only from Him, the true God, the living God, and not from the false gods of other religions. The Jewish people were being threatened by enemies. The people prayed that the Lord would save us, not only for our benefit, but because by saving us, God would be honored. And the Creator being honored is such a good and right thing.
Psalm 116 praises God because God is able to save us from the most desperate circumstances. We live in a very dangerous world. It's a tremendous thing to have a powerful ally we can go for help in time of crisis. I love the Lord, for God heard my voice. God heard my cry for mercy, because He turned His ear to me. I will call on God as long as I live. Praise God that salvation was designed to flow from the chosen.
Psalm 117 praises God that salvation was designed to flow from the chosen people to the other nations of the world. Praise the Lord, all your nations extol Him, all you peoples. Why should Israel and the nations say nice things about God? Because God loves humanity, and His reliable, faithful way of treating us will last forever.
Okay. Psalm 118 praises God for the ultimate salvation that comes to us through the Messiah, who is the right hand of God. The Messiah, who is the gate that opens up to righteousness, who comes up to the name of the Lord. Is that done?
And those are the Halal Prayers, Psalms 113 to 118. Happy Passover.
Kos Hartza'ah, the fourth cup, the cup of acceptance. As our Seder draws to an end, we take up our cups of wine. The redemption is not yet complete. The fourth cup recalls to us to our covenant with the Eternal One, to the task that still await us as a people called to the service of God, to a great purpose for which the people of Israel lives, the preservation and affirmation of hope. Shne'emar v'lakachti etchem li la'am. As it is written, I will take you to be my people. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. We praise you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has created the fruit of the vine. The Seder service now concludes, its rites observed in full, its purposes revealed. This privilege we share will ever be renewed until God's plan is known in full, his highest blessing sealed. Next year in Jerusalem, L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, L'Shana Haba'ah not on Zoom. Shana Tova.
Of all the parts of the Seder, the story of Elijah resonates most with me. I remember the big crowded Seders from my childhood. We had so many aunts and uncles and cousins. It seemed like hundreds of people at our Seders. We rented out a room at a banquet hall. It was such a production. Every year, my gray-bearded Uncle Sammy conducted the Seder. He knew all the blessings and could read Hebrew, and no one else did. So it fell to him. And to be honest, all the kids were just a little bit afraid of him. I know I was. And when it came time to fill the fifth cup of wine, the special cup, Elijah's cup of wine, Uncle Sammy would explain that no one was to drink from this cup. It would wait there for Elijah to come, and only Elijah could drink from it. Elijah. We opened the door for Elijah, who was invisible. This really freaked me out, and the other kids as well. Nothing in the entire Haggadah compared to this. It was magic. It was phantasmagorical. This specter would come and visit our Seder, walk through the open door at the banquet room at Webster Hall to our Seder, and sit and drink with us, and then leave. No one would see him, but we were sure that he would come. And Uncle Sammy would say, "Watch the cup. Did Elijah drink? Is there less wine than there was before? Keep watching." Now, none of us knew how Uncle Sammy took sips from the cup so stealthily. Maybe when we were distracted with other things, he would sneak a swig or two. For the kids, this was real, and the slowly depleted cup was proof that the specter had come. Just wow. Now, I think an invisible visitor or any visitor would be fantastic. I haven't had very many flesh and blood visitors to my home in the past over a year. And I would love to have someone come over for a glass of wine or scotch or beer, anything. I would content myself with a phantom to come over for a dram of Lafroig. And once again this year, as last year, I will have to relive the happy memories of livelier Seders when I was together with friends and family. Elijah, phantom guest, the ghost, if you're out there, if you're listening, I'm going to leave the door open. I will set up a chair for you. I will pour you a glass of something nice. I won't see you, but I'll know you're there. I'll notice the glass slowly being emptied. And I might even help you out a little bit with that. So happy Passover, Zis Pesach, and I hope to see you all soon. And may we have a better in-person Seders next year.
Miriam's cup. Kos Miriam. Miriam's cup is filled with water rather than wine. I invite women of all generations at our table to fill Miriam's cup with water from their own glasses. A Midrash teaches us that a miraculous well accompanied the Hebrews throughout their journey in the desert, providing them with water. This well was given by God to Miriam, the prophetess, to honor her bravery and devotion to the Jewish people. Both Miriam and her well were spiritual oases in the desert, sources of sustenance and healing. Her words of comfort gave the Hebrews the faith and confidence to overcome the hardships of the Exodus. We fill Miriam's cup with water to honor her role in ensuring the survival of the Jewish people. Like Miriam, Jewish women in all generations have been essential for the continuity of our people. As keepers of traditions in the home, women pass down songs and stories, rituals and recipes, from mother to daughter, from generation to generation. Let us each fill the cup of Miriam with water from our own glasses, so that our daughters may continue to draw from the strength and wisdom of our heritage. Miriam's life is a contrast to the life of Elijah, and both teach us important lessons. Elijah was a hermit who spent part of his life alone in the desert. He was a visionary and prophet, often very critical of the Jewish people, and focused on the Messianic era. On the other hand, Miriam lived among her people in the desert, following the path of chesed, or loving kindness. She was constantly comforted the Israelites throughout their long journey, encouraging them when they lost faith. Therefore, Elijah's cup is a symbol of future messianic redemption, while Miriam's cup is a symbol of hope and renewal in the present life. We must achieve balance in our own lives, not only preparing our souls for redemption, but rejuvenating our souls in the present. Thus, we need both Elijah's cup and Miriam's cup at our Seder table. We place Miriam's cup on our Seder table to honor the important role of Jewish women in our tradition and history, whose stories have been too sparingly told.
Shana haba, l'shana haba, l'shana haba berushalayim. L'shana haba, l'shana haba, l'shana haba berushalayim. Shalom, shalom. We've come to the end of our Crowdsourced Seder, and we hope you've had an amazing time. Here at the conclusion, we invoke the words L'shana haba'a berushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. On one hand, this phrase reflects the ancient hope that we return home from exile. On the other hand, I know we'd be just as happy, if not more, to get back to 5959 North Sheridan Road. Even though we're not quite there yet, we're close, so close. And we know it's just a matter of time. Chevre, I know from the bottom of my heart, just like you, that it's been a tough, difficult, challenging year, whether because of pandemic or loss or loneliness or disconnection or dislocation or lethal racial animus or human trafficking or war or oppression or extreme poverty or addiction. Humanity yearns to be more free. So when we say next year, we're also saying no more. No more threats to our freedom. No more danger to our well-being. No more assaults on our peace and wholeness, ours and all people's. Rabbi David Hartman of blessed memory, one of my most favorite theologians, said this in the Leader's Guide to a Different Night, one of my most favorite Haggadot, in response to the fifth cup of Elijah. The cup is poured, but not yet drunk. Yet the cup of hope is poured every year. Passover is the night for reckless dreams, for visions about what a human being can be, what society can be, what people can be, what history may become. That is the significance of L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And so, during this Zman Cherutenu, this season of our freedom and beyond, let us dream recklessly of a day where all shall be free. Let us stay in the fight until liberty is won for all. Let us be the change we seek. I wish all a Chag Pesach Sameach, and thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to all the contributors who blessed us with their collaborative and creative spirit. L'shana haba, l'shana haba, l'shana haba Berushalayim. 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 Laila Tov, lehitraot.